The story opens with a young boy named Morgan experiencing a frightening nightmare. In his dream, water surrounds him completely, even appearing to flow from his stomach. This nightmare keeps coming back because it is tied to something that truly happened in his life. Roughly a year before, Morgan almost drowned, but his grandfather Roy rescued him at the last moment. Morgan lived through the incident. However, the experience caused deep emotional scars, and he continues to have recurring nightmares that disturb him. Morgan is extremely quiet and finds it hard to bond with other children. He doesn't have any friends and often feels isolated. Whenever he attempts to interact, other kids tend to ignore him, which damages his confidence further. Recently, Morgan and his family relocate to a new area, making everything around him feel strange. His parents understand what he's going through, but they believe he needs to adapt eventually. To support him, they decide to send him to a summer camp where he might be able to form friendships. Morgan isn't happy about going, but his grandfather Roy motivates him, saying the change might help him. Before Morgan leaves, Roy gives him a Swiss knife that once belonged to his own father. Morgan values it deeply because of his close relationship with his grandfather. But the moment quickly turns tragic when Roy suddenly experiences intense chest pain and collapses. He dies instantly from a heart attack. Morgan is left devastated because he always saw Roy as his guardian and the only person who truly understood him. After some time, Morgan's parents choose not to cancel the summer camp, hoping it could positively impact him. Before he departs, his mother advises him to enjoy himself and avoid eating too much sugar, as sweets often trigger his nightmares. The scene then moves to the camp, where the staff are preparing for the kids' arrival. Among them are Rachel, Franklin, Avery, Casswar, and Casswar's girlfriend Lori. Their supervisor Collins oversees the camp each year, and everyone is busy getting things ready. However, it quickly becomes obvious that Casswar and Lori are careless and don't take their responsibilities seriously, while Franklin works properly. Soon, the camp is filled with the sounds of children arriving, and Morgan's family brings him there too. Rachel greets them and hands Morgan a card to write his name, but his mother fills it out instead. Rachel disapproves of this because it seems like Morgan's parents are overprotective. After all, the purpose of the camp is to help children become independent. When his parents try to walk him to the cabin, Rachel gently stops them, saying parents are not allowed inside. So they say their goodbyes and leave. Inside the cabin, Morgan meets CJ, the boy he'll be sharing the room with. CJ is spoiled and happens to be the son of Morgan's father's friend. Morgan has never liked him, and CJ often bullies him, so staying with him for several days feels terrible. CJ's friends also don't like Morgan. Later, during the introduction session, Morgan meets a kind girl named Perar. Nearby, a boy named Dirk is listening to affirmations, showing that he also struggles with confidence. Casswar asks for his name, makes fun of how he wrote it, and takes away his device since electronics aren't allowed at the camp. Dirk then comes over and stands next to Morgan, and they exchange a few words. Soon after, Collins announces their first activity, which is a swimming test. Hearing this frightens Morgan because water is his greatest fear. Gathering courage, he tells Franklin that he doesn't want to participate, and they respect his decision. CJ immediately makes fun of him and shoves him to the ground, causing the other kids to laugh. Morgan feels humiliated. Collins steps in, scolds everyone, and takes CJ to the office, warning him to behave properly. But CJ and his friend continue laughing, so Collins sends them away, pointing out how spoiled their behavior is. Later that evening by the campfire, Morgan sits together with Dirk, Raj, and Sam. They chat for a while and gradually start building a bond of friendship. At one point, Morgan feels like someone is watching them from behind a tree, but when he checks again, no one is there, so he ignores the feeling. The children then ask for a story, and Rachel begins telling a frightening legend about the place. She explains that before the camp was built, a doctor lived there with his family. During the daytime, he carried out surgeries to save people's lives. But at night, he secretly performed disturbing experiments in his basement, attaching different body parts together. He had one strict rule: no one was allowed to enter the basement. One day, his wife discovered what he was doing and tried to escape with the children, but the doctor stopped them. Unable to let his family go, he used them as part of his experiments by forcing them together. The kids listened closely, especially Morgan and his friends. Rachel adds that some believe the doctor still roams the forest and hunts children who leave their cabins at night to continue his experiments. Suddenly, Khazar jumps out from behind and scares everyone, turning the tension into laughter. Later, while heading back to the cabins, Parr walks Morgan since he still seems uneasy. When Morgan asks if the story could be true, Parr explains that camps often make up such stories so kids follow the rules. While Morgan is in the bathroom, he suddenly notices water dripping from the door. This triggers flashbacks of his drowning experience, even though he is fully awake. Following a strange noise outside, he briefly spots a man in a surgical outfit who resembles the doctor from the scary story. Since the story is already in his mind, fear quickly takes over him. Morgan runs to the counselors and tells Rachel and Franklin that someone is inside his cabin. They remind him that his record mentions frequent nightmares, so it is likely just his imagination. To calm him, Franklin walks back to the cabin with him, but they don't find anyone there. Morgan eventually goes to sleep. The next day, he talks with Parr, and before leaving, she gives him 3 chocolates. That night, Morgan notices CJ angrily going through his belongings. When Morgan asks what he is doing, CJ snaps at him, shoves him aside, and storms off. The incident makes Morgan so uneasy that he decides to stay inside the cabin. Later, Franklin checks on him, and Morgan asks if he can switch rooms. Franklin explains that everyone at the camp is different, but they shouldn't give up on each other, and Morgan accepts this. The following day, Morgan tells Parr that CJ's behavior felt strange. At that moment, CJ appears, likely having overheard their conversation. He asks Morgan to talk privately and takes him to the lake. At first, he seems calm, but suddenly he pushes Morgan into the water. Morgan's biggest fear comes true. Since he cannot swim and begins to panic, he starts drowning. Raj quickly arrives and pushes CJ away, but CJ attacks him and keeps punching him repeatedly. Soon, Caswar reaches the lake, pulls Morgan out, and tries to revive him using CPR. During this terrifying moment, Morgan imagines seeing his grandfather Roy. CJ continues attacking Raj until Collins arrives and separates them. Morgan soon regains consciousness, but everyone is shaken. CJ nearly caused serious harm to both boys. Still, he is not removed from the camp and continues to share a room with Morgan, raising doubts about why the counselors are not taking his behavior seriously. That night, while Morgan is resting, his friends come to check on him. Raj already looks better and doesn't seem seriously injured. Soon, Collins arrives, asks them to leave so Morgan can rest, and brings him a cup of cocoa milk. He also says they will handle CJ and that Morgan shouldn't worry before leaving. Morgan doesn't drink the cocoa milk, but eats the chocolates Parr gave him, which lead to another nightmare. In the dream, he once again sees water and his grandfather. When he wakes up, CJ is missing from his bed, and light is coming from a nearby cabin. Taking his knife, Morgan quietly walks toward it. Inside, he discovers a room that looks like an operating room. When he pulls the curtain aside, he sees CJ lying on a table as if surgery is being performed on him, just like in the doctor's story about experiments. Morgan is shocked, and before he can react, a man in a surgeon's outfit tries to grab him. Morgan stabs the man's leg with his knife and runs back to his friends. He wakes them up and tells them that the doctor from the story is real and experimenting on the children. Raj doesn't believe him because earlier trouble already got him hurt. But suddenly, the doctor appears and knocks Raj unconscious with a taser, causing the other kids to panic and run. Soon, the commotion wakes up more children, and the doctor begins using the taser on them as well. The counselors hear the disturbance, and Rachel calls all the kids to the mess hall. Morgan refuses to leave without Parr, so he and his friends run to warn her. Parr's friend Caroline doesn't believe them at first until the doctor shocks some kids nearby, proving the threat is real. They stop near the area where Rachel is still calling everyone to gather. Dirk suggests going there since adults are present, but Morgan says they can't trust anyone right now, so they hide in a shed. Meanwhile, Franklin tries to stop the doctor, but the doctor knocks him down. All the children are terrified, while Rachel and Collins attempt to calm them. At the same time, Morgan and his friends discuss their next move. Sam and Caroline suggest escaping by crossing the lake, but Morgan is scared of water. When Parr asks why, Morgan explains that he once almost drowned and was saved by his grandfather. He tells them to leave by boat without him, but Dirk refuses to leave him behind. Suddenly, they hear someone coming and quickly hide. It turns out to be Caswar searching for them, but they still don't trust him. However, Sam steps outside. Caswar reassures him that everything is okay and asks where the others are. But at that moment, the doctor appears. Instead of protecting Sam, Caswar hands him over, and the doctor knocks him unconscious with a taser. Morgan's suspicion is confirmed. Caswar is working with the doctor. The remaining kids panic and run, while Caswar chases them, and Caroline stays hidden inside the shed. Meanwhile, in the mess hall, Rachel is trying to calm the children children when the doctor enters and starts knocking them unconscious one by one with a taser. Outside, many children are already lying unconscious. Caroline runs through the forest but slips, and a sharp piece of wood pierces her leg. She painfully pulls it out and continues moving until she hears a car nearby. Luckily, it is a police officer who rescues her. Caroline begs him to help the others, and he drives toward the camp. At the same time, Morgan and the others reach Franklin, who has a head injury. He tells them to go to Collins's office and call the police. Morgan tries to call, but the phone only repeats a message and doesn't connect. While there, Morgan notices CJ's file describing his anger issues and other behavioral problems. The scene then shifts to the counselors gathered together. At that moment, the doctor enters, and it is revealed to be Avery, one of the counselors. This shows that all of them are involved. For now, it becomes clear that Franklin betrayed them by helping the kids, likely because he didn't agree with using tasers on children. Rachel angrily asks where Morgan and the others are, and Franklin admits he sent them to Collins's office. Casswar is sent to bring them back. When Dirk sees him coming, he tells Morgan and Parr to hide and decides to get revenge because Casswar had earlier mocked his name. Casswar can't open the door, so he steps back to break. As he charges forward, Dirk suddenly opens the door, causing Casswar to crash into a table and get hurt. Dirk then strikes him with a bat and knocks him unconscious, but Rachel arrives and shocks Dirk with a taser. Soon, the police officer who rescued Caroline arrives, but Rachel shocks him as well, revealing he is also involved. The officer tells Rachel to take control of the situation, and she orders everyone to follow the protocol. However, they're unaware that Morgan and Parr are still inside Collins's office. Inside the room, Morgan discovers the files belonging to the children. While looking through CJ's file, he notices something unusual. Along with the birth date, there is also a recorded date of death. Shocked, Morgan checks his own file and finds the same detail. Thinking back to the time he nearly drowned, he starts to panic and realizes something horrifying. Outside, several vans arrive to transport the children away, and Collins is part of this operation. He is upset because things have not gone according to plan. Every night, they perform procedures on the kids and use drugged cocoa milk to keep them unconscious, just like the drink given to Morgan. But Morgan didn't drink it that night, so he woke up and uncovered everything. While they're arguing, Morgan and Parr suddenly step in holding taser. Morgan then asks them a shocking question. Are we already dead? Rachel tells Morgan and Parr to stay calm as they continue asking if they are dead. Collins takes the taser from them and explains that they are not dead because they were never truly born. The real Morgan drowned a year ago, and the boy we see now is a robotic version of him. Collins reveals that this project started years ago after he lost his son Benjamin. Unable to accept his loss, he created a robotic version of his child and later began helping other families who had lost their children. These children are not entirely mechanical. Parts of them are also biological. Franklin arrives, clearly upset because the events of the night were never supposed to happen. He also feels sympathy for the children. Collins insists that they are robots, not humans, and says he never intended to harm anyone. Tired of the situation, he walks away. Franklin then tells everyone else to leave and promises to reset Morgan and Parr so they will forget everything that happened. This explains why the children were being shocked with tasers, so their systems could later be reset. In truth, all the kids at the camp are robots. Even so, their bodies and emotions closely resemble humans, which is why the truth shocks Morgan and Parr. Franklin explains that Collins created them, while the counselors act like programmers who maintain their systems. Each robot replaces a child who has already died. That is why every file includes both a birth date and a death date. Because robots cannot grow naturally, they return to this camp every year for 2 months. During that time, adjustments are made so their bodies match their growing age. The procedures at night are actually these adjustments and repairs. If a system issue appears, it is fixed in the same way, which is what Collins was doing with CJ. That is also why CJ was not removed from the camp. When Parr asks about the scary doctor story, Franklin explains it was just a made-up tale to keep the children inside their cabins at night. Normally, these robots never discover the truth. Everyone around them carefully avoids saying anything that might reveal it. Over time, this system has become normal, and the robots are even officially registered like real citizens. After what happened tonight, their systems will simply be restarted, and they will forget everything as if nothing occurred. Collins gives Morgan and Parr a choice. They can forget everything and wake up the next day like normal kids with no memory of the truth. Or they can keep their memories and live knowing what they really are. The scene cuts, and the next morning all the children begin their day, as usual, forgetting everything that happened the previous night. CJ also appears completely normal again. Only Morgan and Parr remember because they chose not to erase their memories, and only Franklin knows about their decision. Morgan's fear of water is also gone since he now understands his reality. Meanwhile, Colin speaks with a man who reports that many camps have sent warnings about these robots developing malfunctions. Similar to CJ becoming aggressive, the situation is becoming harder to control, so something must be done soon. Collins assures him that he will fix everything. However, Collins does not realize that Franklin has made a serious mistake. A similar malfunction has now appeared in Parr. Perhaps she cannot handle the truth about her existence. She has already killed Rachel and now walks into Collins' office with blood on her body and a knife in her hand. Before Collins can react, Parr attacks him. The film ends there.